Hey everyone, Kevin here with Divinely Designed, and today I thought we would do a card making paper crafting video. I recently got in some new stamps and dies from Heartfelt Creations. If you are someone who follows my sort of the crafty side of my channel, you've probably heard me talk about Heartfelt Creation flower dies before. I really love them. I think they make beautiful flowers. Now, I also think that you can take a lot of dies, flower dies, and make them beautiful flowers. But I think the Heartfelt Creation ones are really great because they often will do stamps that coordinate with the dies that make the flowers just fantastic. So what I have today are here are some of the flowers that I've made from the Sunrise Lilly stamp. This is the die set and the die set and the stamp here. So I've done these kind of in purples and blues, and it also cuts out some leaves. So I thought I would go through how I made these flowers, this type of flower, and then look at a card I put together with using the Sunrise Lily flowers themselves. Okay, so let's get started. Alright, so the stamp itself is one big stamp where you are going to stamp out a large flower, which is in two pieces, the outer petals, and a smaller flower that also is in two pieces, the outer flower and then the inner flower. The stamp also contains some leaves on it. The die that comes with it then matches up. So you stamp all of those elements and then use the die to cut them all out, like that. Okay, so it's pretty convenient, you know, since you can kind of do everything at once. The die also cuts these round portions here, which are meant to go kind of on the bottom of the flower to hold it up. So as an example, here is the back of one of the purple flowers, and you can see, hopefully you can see, kind of this little round portion here that goes on. Now, they say it's supposed to give the flower a little extra shape. I'm going to be honest, I don't know that it helps all that much. I suppose if you make it small enough and fit it and hold it on to the size of your flower, it could help, but I didn't find that little round piece super helpful. I think you can shape them just fine without it. The die set also contains the stamen portions, both for a large flower and the small flower. Now, I will say the stamps are great. They're really high quality. They stamp really well. They come on this kind of thick foam pad, so I find that they're very easy to stamp with and give a nice even stamping with a lot of different inks. I will tell you the one thing I find I don't love on this stamp set is that they put the leaves on the same stamp set here. So if you're making these, I mean, typically you're going to make the flowers out of one color and then the leaves out of the green. So you end up having to, you know, cut these leaves out of the paper that you're going to make a flower of, and then you don't have a lot to do with them. But I thought, well, is there something I could do with those leftover leaves? So I did end up making a flower just out of the leaves. Now, this isn't, you know, I don't know what kind of flower this would be, but it would be a way to kind of use up some of those things and use this on some other project, perhaps. But then when you just want the leaves and you're going to stamp them on green, you know, you're going to ink up sort of this side of the stamp and then cut them out. But you just kind of end up wasting some space between the leaves here. It's a minor complaint. I mean, I love the stamp set and the die, but I will tell you that that frustrates me a little bit. So if you use an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and you cut it in half, you can stamp the stamp twice on that half sheet of 8.5 and 11. And you'll be able to then die cut 2 large flowers and 2 small flowers, and then all the extra leaves. And this is the flower that I made from those little extra leaves that came out of it. So, okay, so stamp your stamp. In this case, I'm using kind of a medium pink paper, and to stamp it, I used some archival ink in plum. I like a darker outline here. I think it works really well with the finished product. Okay, so that gives you then this larger flower piece and this smaller flower piece. And again, these 2 round circles here. Now, I won't focus on the round circles too much, but if you're going to use them on the flower, I do have the Heartfelt Creations shaping tool, which is a really neat kit, I will say. Let me show it to you here briefly. The kit itself comes in kind of this package. Oh, mine's a little dirty. But the ends of the flower shaping tool themselves are magnetic, so they come out, and you can change them. So it comes with different size heads here. This is the largest one. And then it has sort of, graduated smaller ball shapes on it for different sizes. It also has this curling piece to it where you can sort of slide the paper in and then curl it if you wanted to. And it also, the last one down here is not a ball, but a needle tool or a pokey tool. So right now I have 2 of the ball shapes in there. Not the biggest one, but the next one, and then the 4th one down here I have in my shaping tool. This mat also comes in that flower shaping kit. And it's just a spongy mat. If you don't have a spongy mat, if you don't have this kit, you can use Fun Foam, and it works the same way. And if you don't have a flower shaping tool like this, if you have clay shaping tools, sometimes the clay shaping tools themselves have round ball ends to them. Or if you have, if you're in a pinch, you could use, if you have a pen, like a big pen that has a rounded end to it, you could do that too. Or I'm sure you can find, other things in your stash that have sort of round ends to them. Okay, so if you're going to use these round portions, again, I don't necessarily know that they do a lot, but for this flower I made out of the leaves, I did use it to hold those other leaves together. But if you're going to use it, you can use the round tool and then simply kind of drag it around in a circle, and that will kind of make it fold up. And you want some of it to overlap, and then you would glue those sections together so it stays kind of in this cup form, and that's where you can then put your flower in later, okay? All right, so how I colored mine, I'm going to do it on the large flower because I think that'll be easier to see. I'm going to use some Zig markers, some Zig real brush markers, and how I colored these was I'm going to use kind of a coordinating shade, the same as my cardstock. So I have, in the red family here, I have a dark one, in this case it's wine red, and then a lighter, this one is light carmine. But I also have kind of a contrasting one. This is bright yellow, and I'm going to put this just in the center, and I'm just going to make kind of like a medium thick line here on each of the petals and make this 3-finger kind of thing, shape, and just, that's it, leave it, okay? So it might be hard to see. Let me show you what I did here with the blue ones. In the blue ones, I used green, I don't know if you can see in there, but then you end up with kind of this green sentinel. It's subtle, but I really like the effect that it has. Okay, so we're going to leave that there. I'm going to start with my darkest color. Now this is not watercolor paper, it's just regular cardstock. And I'm basically going to follow this little finger up here and draw kind of a center section and then fill it in with the dark color, okay? And I'm going to do that on all 3 petals. And this doesn't have to be super exact. You know, the Zig brush markers are really easy to use, but this, you know, you don't need to be super precise. You can see I'm kind of going kind of quickly and not necessarily being too concerned about is it totally even or whatnot. And we're going to do the same on the inside petals. Try not to go over the yellow portion here that you drew, because this dark color will sort of overwhelm it. Okay, so just kind of drawing the little fingers around the yellow part that we drew, and then filling them in so they sort of all connect in the middle there. Okay? All right, that's the dark. Then we're going to take the lighter color, and we're going to fill in the rest of this, but we're going to leave part of it uncolored. And that part of that uncolored is really acting as the lightest portion of the flower petal to give it those highlights. Now again, at this point, I'm not crossing over into that dark space. I'm just drawing right around it. And again, don't have to be super precise. You can go fairly quickly here. Just leave some of your petal uncolored, and that will be your lightest portion. Of your flower. Okay, and same with the inner petal. Again, don't have to be super exact here. You know, real life flowers have lots of differences in them, so we're not trying to make botanically correct flowers here. We just sort of want them to be pretty. But little you know, differences are fine. Okay, so again, I did that rather quickly. Now what I want to do is I'm going to take this same light color, and where the light color and this dark portion meet, I'm going to take the end of my Zig marker, and I'm going to make little circles right along that border where the 2 colors meet. And all I'm really trying to do is kind of blend in or create an area of transition between the darkest and the lightest colors. And for this one, you do want to take your time and be a little bit more precise with it. Again, if you're not, it's very forgiving. But this will help to then sort of create that medium color between the darkest and the lightest and make your flower just really look great. Okay, now at this point you have an option. You can leave the yellow just like it is here in the middle if you kind of want a more dramatic effect. You know, choose a center color that is contrasting. If you want to make this a little bit more subtle, you could take this lighter color and go over the yellow portion in the middle here, and that will make it a little bit more subtle. I'm going to leave it like it is. I think I'm going to try and go for a little bit more of a dramatic kind of look. Okay, so now we want to shape the flowers, and this is pretty easy. So I'm going to turn them over on their backs, and I'm going to take my larger ball stylus, and I'm just going to kind of follow the edge of the petal up at the top, back and forth to make it a little bit rounded, and then I'm going to come down doing that same back and forth to about, maybe a quarter way down the petal, just trying to get a nice round shape on it. And I'm going to do that for all 3 of these outside petals. And then I'm going to repeat it for the inside petals. Now, if you're using maybe really thick cardstock or you're finding this really hard, you can take a little water, just a little bit, and kind of mist it, and that will make your paper much more pliable. Don't do a lot though, because it will weaken the fibers of your paper. And if you're pushing really hard with this ball stylus, then you could rip your paper. But misting it with a little bit of water will make this easier. Okay, so we sort of have this cup shape here. We're then going to turn them over, and we're going to use the same ball stylus, and in the middle, just push down here, and you're going to see that the three ends kind of come up. And we also want to move into each petal and kind of push down at the base of the petal. So that's going to give us a larger, the petals will fold up more deeply. If you do just the middle, you'll sort of get this more subtle curve to them. If you want a deeper one, go up a little bit onto the petal, each petal itself, and then push in the middle, and you'll get that nice deep one, okay? And then we're going to take some glue, and a little glue in the middle here. Put them together. I like to press down again to make sure they're nice and connected there. And make sure, I gotta readjust it, make sure your petals are sort of, the inner ones are between the outer ones. All right, I'm gonna put that aside for 1 second. Now, I also have the stamen for the inner part. Now, for the blue and purple ones, I used a stamen that was the same color as my flower. Again, this is a more kind of subtle look for it. If you want to go with a more dramatic one, use a contrasting or a different color or black. And for this one, I actually have some glitter paper that I cut this over a scrap of black glitter paper, and I'm going to use that. So on the glittery side, I'm going to turn it over and put that on my mat. This is probably a little hard to see. But what I'm going to do, or the action is, I'm going to take the smaller ball stylus, press at the top, and then drag toward the middle, but not go all the way. If you do it all the way, this one is going to kind of curl all the way back. And I don't want it to curl all the way back. I just want it to curl partially. So I'm going to kind of partially curl them. I think it kind of looks like a spider when you're done with his little feet there. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to push in the middle. And again, we're going to get the legs to sort of come up. Now, if you want a deeper one here, you can fold your mat over and get a deeper impression. And I like doing this to give it a nice deep impression. Kind of run that around. Okay, so then you should, whoop, my spider jumped away. So you should end up with something like that. Okay, and we're going to glue that in the center. Give a nice solid press. And then I'm going to fold my mat over, and then I'm going to give, again, this is with the smaller ball stylus, again, a nice firm press down here. And I'm going to let it sit there. What I'm going to do now with my hands is actually, my fingers, is try to shape these petals. I'm going to push them up, and at the same time, on the inner ones, I'm sort of curving this top portion a little bit more rounded. So push them toward the center and round them a little bit, and then I'm going to do the same thing kind of with the outside petals. Now this will give you a nice sort of tightly packed flower that it has a lot more dimension. It has, you know, a lot more sort of 3D-ness to it. If you want a flatter flower, then don't do as much of that shaping, and you can leave it sort of flatter. And then I'm just going to kind of use my fingers to kind of zhuzh it together here. You know, don't forget about your fingers. They make great tools. And the last thing I like to do for these flowers, actually for a lot of Heartfelt Creation flowers, is I like to use Wink of Stella, because I think they sort of scream out for glitter, and instead of having to break out the glitter and kind of get it everywhere, I think Wink of Stella works fantastic here. This is not Wink of Stella. Actually, I don't remember who makes this now, but it's the same kind of thing. Maybe it's on the Crystal Clear. Oh, this is Spectrum Noir Sparkle. Spectrum Noir Sparkle pen, but it's the same concept as the Wink of Stella. And this is really easy. This will also help sort of fade some of your colors together, but I'm just going to quickly kind of paint all of the petals with some of this glittery stuff. And obviously this is optional. If you don't want to use glitter, you certainly don't have to. This will give it a nice sort of shiny appearance. Now, when you do that, I will say adding that liquid will sometimes make it flatten out a little bit more. Once it's completely dry, you may need to come back in and sort of squish it together if you're looking for a much more compact flower. So these are two that I made earlier. Again, we can see in this case, since I used that black inner stamen, it has sort of a much more dramatic kind of look to it versus the blues and the purples here, which I use the same color. That gives it a more subtle look to it. Now, you can also use lots of other things in here. For this one, I added these colored little stamens, and where do I have them? Here they are. So you can get these, actually these are from the cake decorating section, and you can get, usually they come in different colors, but they're stamens for like sugar flowers and things like that. So I added a little bit of contrasting color here to the purple one to sort of make it pop a little bit. But I really love kind of how this coloring gives this nice deep color in the center of the petal, and then it sort of fades out into a much more blended one. And again, depending on how much blending you do, you can see here this worked really well with the blending. The purple one's a little less blended, but it still has a really cool look to it. So I think either one, they look really great. And so for this one, I made a card. Get my flowers out of the way here. So I used the Heartfelt Creations decorative oval panel for this one, which cuts out this shape right here. And I added a little bit of bling that I colored. These are actually clear rhinestones that I colored with Spectrum Noir. Spectrum Prismacolor. These are Prismacolor. Sorry, pink alcohol marker, and then I added these tiny little pearls, which I colored with Spectrum Noir with a gray, like a medium gray kind of color, and just added the flowers kind of in the corner on a matted piece of paper. Heartfelt Creations does have a paper pack that kind of goes along with it. This is not it. This is another piece of paper that I just had laying around. And this is a Studio G stamp that I had laying around. And I just like that little saying. And I will say, when I'm putting flowers on cards like these, I actually like to use hot glue because they have so much dimension. I like to be able to position them, and sometimes it makes a difference whether the flower is laying down on its side or you can stick it up more straight. And sometimes you want to be able to do that, and I feel like with like a liquid glue like Tombow, you just don't get that quick drying time, and then they end up not in the position that you want. So I prefer to use hot glue on cards where I'm adding flowers to them. So this is a pink flower that was a little bit of a lighter pink as opposed to the one I just did. This was kind of a darker pink. But I did the same technique in terms of coloring, and then if you kind of look closely, in the middle. Maybe you can see there's also some yellow shading kind of in the centers. Again, kind of a subtle effect, but I think it makes the flower just look really cool. So, okay, that's it for this video. Comments, questions, leave them down below. Like, subscribe, do all that fun YouTube stuff and and thanks for stopping by. Check back here for more crafty and soapy videos. Thanks everyone. Talk to you all later.